this happened to me in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was after midnight, and I was driving a late model BMW M3. I was headed to the library to return books when a police officer turned his lights on to stop me. I wasn't speeding. I signaled to turn. All the lights on the car were functional, so the usual reasons for being stopped driving while black didn't apply to me. Before he got to my car, I know the routine. I put my hands on the steering wheel so he could see them. His hand was on his gun. He shined a light into the car and said, "License and registration." And he said it like that. I kept my hands on the steering wheel and said, my license is in my purse and the registration is in the glove box. May I get them? I said license and registration. His tone seemed confrontational to me, and he kept his hand on his gun. So I narrated my movements while trying to keep my hand, at least one of them, on the steering wheel. I told him I'm reaching for my wallet in my purse. I'm opening the glove box. What I didn't say to him was, "I'm afraid of you."
You know, in my 50 years of police experience, I can tell you one thing for sure. That story you just heard is real. Driving while black, driving while brown is a real experience. I know something else. If you don't believe that that's real, then you're white. You know, it raises some very fundamental questions about policing in America. It raises a question of how did we get here, and it raises the question of what do we do about it. You know, what I'm not saying, let me be clear, that all 900,000 men and women in policing service in this country are racist. They do a great job day in and day out. They do it honestly and honorably. I've been a part of a profession all my life. But what I am saying is that racially biased policing exists. There are individual officers that carry out that style of policing. Sometimes it's whole squads, and sometimes it's even entire police departments. If you want to see how that works, just read the Justice Department report on Ferguson, Missouri. Now, if you look at the data we've accumulated over the years in supporting that this kind of behavior exists, you can find it all over. You know, you can do your own research, find it on the internet. It's real. What's important for us is to understand a bit about how we got here. Now, policing, and certainly in my lifetime, I mentioned 50 years, I started when I was 12, just so you know. What has happened to policing is become more professional. We've become more educated. We've become better trained and better led. You know, that's part of the reality. But along the way, we became distant from our communities, particularly from our communities of color and from our poor communities. We became more militaristic, more reactive. You know, you'll hear police departments, particularly urban police departments, saying, you know, that they have trouble engaging with their communities because they're going from call to call to call, that they're disconnected. Part of that disconnect is that we have not changed the style of policing for decades. The style that you're all familiar with, we call it policing from the perimeter. You'll see your police officers that work your neighborhoods, work around your business districts, driving around the outside of the businesses and the districts, waiting for the bad thing to happen. When the bad thing happens, they respond quickly. And they respond professionally, and they take care of the bad thing. And then you know what they do. They get back in their patrol car and leave. You know, in all my years of working with police officers in communities, I like to ask police officers the question, name 5 people in the neighborhoods that you work other than somebody you've arrested. you know, and sometimes are hard pressed to do that. Then I turn to the community and say, name the officers that routinely patrol your neighborhood. Same thing. They're hard pressed to answer the question. That disconnect causes a lot of issues in terms of how you're being policed and how the police are perceived. You know, when police officers are that disconnected, we have to find ways to put them back into the community in a way that makes sense and makes everybody safer, makes you safer, makes the officers safer. One of the ways we do that, and we've done that in cities around the country for the last 30-some years, is called community policing. It's not only a philosophical construct, but it's a design of policing that says police departments have to make organizational transformations in order that they can fully engage their communities in problem solving. Part of that organizational transformation has to do with the way police departments are designed. For example, and you see it on TV all the time, you'll see the emphasis on special squads, detective divisions, SWAT teams, gang units, special units. All these units are important. But, you know, every member of those units comes from the Uniform Patrol Service. The quality of service and the effectiveness of police service in our country is based on the delivery of uniform patrol service at the community level. So the more officers you take for specialty units, the less officers you have to deliver the service. And then you'll hear police leadership and political leadership say all the time, we don't have time to engage our community in the kind of prevention and problem solving we're doing because we're going from call to call to call. We do not have enough officers. Some of those lack of officers is actually built into the design. The other thing I want to say about the lack of officers is this engagement in problem solving, working together with the community is not dependent on how many officers you have. It's dependent on the quality of the delivery of the service. So if you do the work that puts that energy and that skill and the talent of those officers into those neighborhoods, you reduce crime and you reduce disorder and you reduce the need for the number of men and women in the police service that have to go into specialty units. You know, it begins to look like a vicious circle. You know, and so the change becomes vital to moving towards a more fully engaged police department with the communities they serve. You know, this is about trust. And, you know, the mission of the police, in order to carry out their mission, their core mission is to protect the human rights and the civil rights and the dignity of every single person in their community. That can't be done if there's distance from the officers from the community and there's a lack of trust. You know, as we all work together to do this important work, as we work to make everybody safer, you know, the challenge for us and the charge for us is to say, listen, all policing is local. You know, you have local control of all policing in this country, and you can make the change you want. You get the type of police service you tolerate. You want to engage the government and the community in making the change. You can take a persistent, difficult issue like racially biased policing and put an end to it. Thank you.